Your phone buzzes. It's them. Where are you? Before you can reply, another text lands. Who are you with? You feel a flicker of something. Not the warmth of being cared for, but the cold prickle of being watched. We all know there's a line between simple concern and quiet interrogation. But what happens when that line gets stretched? When it starts to bend into shapes that feel almost ridiculous? Suddenly, a 10-minute delay at the grocery store becomes a full-blown detective investigation. You find yourself explaining traffic patterns like a suspect providing an alibi. The loving concern starts to feel more like surveillance, and it's a shift so strange, it can make you feel like you're the one who's being unreasonable for even noticing. If that specific texture of a relationship resonates with you, that slow shift from care to surveillance, let me be very clear. You are not imagining things, and you are not overreacting. What you're experiencing isn't just a series of bad moods or simple insecurity. It's a hidden architecture, a deliberate psychological pattern. And our goal here is to simply turn on the lights and see it for what it really is. The most damaging forms of control rarely announce themselves with a shout. They whisper. This quiet, systematic pressure works by creating a profound sense of psychological friction, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's the painful gap between two opposing beliefs. They say they love me, and their actions make me feel trapped. This dissonance shows up as constant criticism disguised as helpful advice, intense jealousy framed as protection, or a desire to isolate you that's sold as just wanting you all to myself. Each action in isolation can almost be explained away. But this is the critical reframe. The problem isn't found in any single action. It's in the unifying goal behind all of them. The true purpose is to systematically dismantle a person's autonomy, to slowly, quietly erode their very sense of self. This architecture of control has a name. It's called coercive control. Sociologist Evan Stark didn't just give it a name, he reframed it as a liberty crime. That's a critical distinction. It shifts the focus from simple relationship conflict to a deliberate pattern of entrapment, one so damaging it's now recognized by psychologists and even the law. The reason for this is chillingly clear. Physical abuse is often episodic, a series of distinct, painful moments. Coercive control, however, is a constant atmosphere you're forced to breathe. Research published in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence shows the psychological damage from this relentless pressure, anxiety, depression, symptoms of C-PTSD can be just as or even more severe. So how is this suffocating atmosphere actually built? The architecture is built through subtraction. It begins by quietly criticizing your friends, then making family visits a source of tension. Soon, your hobbies are framed as silly distractions. With each small removal, your world shrinks until the controller becomes your only source of reality and validation. It's a slow, quiet construction project, and the walls are almost impossible to see when you're inside them. It's often compared to the boiling frog fable. The change is so incremental, you don't perceive the danger until you're already scalded. This is how an invisible cage is constructed. Its bars aren't made of steel, they're forged from your own self-doubt, from guilt, and from a constant, exhausting fear of their next reaction. You feel the confinement, but when you try to point to the walls, there's nothing solid to touch. It's a prison without a single visible bar. And this raises a deeply unsettling question. What is going on inside the mind of the architect? It's easy to assume the motive is pure malice, but the truth is often more complex and more disturbing. Because in the architecture of their own mind, they aren't the villain. This isn't a landscape of calculated cruelty, but one of profound insecurity. Their control is a desperate attempt to manage an overwhelming fear of abandonment. The internal monologue isn't, how can I hurt them, but a constant, frantic whisper, if I don't manage this perfectly, they will leave me. I will be alone. This isn't just a personality quirk. This desperate architecture of control often has deep, identifiable psychological roots. This is well documented in attachment theory, first developed by psychologist John Bowlby. Research consistently links these controlling behaviors to an anxious or disorganized attachment style, often formed in a chaotic upbringing. This is a critical point. It's an explanation for the architecture, not an excuse for the damage it causes. For them, control creates an illusion of safety in a world they perceive as deeply threatening. By micromanaging your life, they aren't truly managing you. They are desperately trying to manage their own internal anxiety. You slowly become less of a partner and more of an object, a living tool for their emotional regulation. And that fundamentally reframes the entire situation. You're not navigating a partner's jealousy. You are caught inside their desperate and deeply flawed coping mechanism. And that's why the outside world's simplest question feels so cruel. It seems so simple. Friends, family, maybe even a part of your own mind asks it, why don't you just leave? But this question, however well-intentioned, lands like a judgment. It completely misunderstands the architecture of the trap because you're not held by locks, but by a powerful, invisible psychological bond. Psychologists call this a trauma bond, an incredibly strong connection forged by an unpredictable cycle of control and small kindnesses. It's a powerful form of intermittent reinforcement. When you're starved of warmth, a single breadcrumb of affection can feel like a feast. So if leaving feels impossible, that's not a failure of your character. It means the bond is functioning precisely as it's designed to, and this reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about who is most vulnerable to this dynamic. The misunderstanding is that you have to be weak to get caught in this dynamic. The opposite is often true. Controllers are frequently drawn to strong, empathetic people precisely because your resilience means you can endure it. The real attack isn't on your strength, but on your memory. This is a direct assault on your sense of reality. When someone you trust constantly tells you that didn't happen, or you're remembering it wrong, your mind is forced into a terrible conflict. Whose memory do you trust? The person you've built a life with, or your own? This creates a profound doubt, and it's your very willingness to consider their version that becomes the entry point for the control. Let's reframe that willingness to question yourself with compassion. It isn't a flaw, it's the very texture of your open-mindedness and your deep desire to be a fair partner. These positive traits are precisely what this architecture of control is designed to exploit. But understanding how your own strengths are being used against you, that's not a weakness. It's the beginning of your power. And here is the profound benefit of seeing this architecture clearly. The entire emotional weight shifts. It moves from the crushing burden of what's wrong with me to the objective clarity of this is a pattern happening to me. That single reframe is everything. It is the first, most critical step toward reclaiming your own mind, your own memories, and your own story. So let's be very clear about what this new understanding is for. This video isn't a guide on how to leave. That's a different, deeply personal journey. This is a guide on how to see, because you can't escape a cage you don't know you're in. So what is the first step in learning to see? A simple private practice. Start an evidence log. This isn't for a court of law, it's for the court of your own mind. After an interaction leaves you feeling confused, just write down what happened, exactly as you remember it. This simple act begins to rebuild the trust between you and your own perception, creating an anchor to reality that can't be gaslit away. Because once you start trusting your own story, you can finally confront theirs. And this is the moment you confront the labels they've tattooed onto your self-perception. So let's be perfectly clear. You are not too sensitive. You are not crazy. You are not difficult. You are a person having a sane human response to an insane level of control. Understanding that distinction is the key to absolving yourself from the guilt you've been forced to carry. So let go of the idea that you let this happen. You were targeted for your compassion, your capacity for hope, and your deep sense of loyalty. These weren't weaknesses, they were resources. Understanding the architecture of coercive control means you can finally stop blaming the person who was trapped and start looking with clarity at the cage itself. True connection isn't about two people merging into one. It's about two whole, sovereign individuals choosing to stand together. So the final question is simply this. Does your relationship offer you room to breathe, or does it slowly, quietly take your air away? Knowing your compassion was a resource they targeted, not a weakness. How does that reframe one specific moment from your past? I want to read your answer in the comments. This hidden pattern is everywhere. In the next video, we uncover the real reason you prefer texting over calling. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. Like if you see the truth now and share this with someone who needs this clarity.